Hi, I'm Nataliah, I'm 28. And a few weeks ago, my parents sent a group message that shattered me. It said, "We think it's best you step away for now." No warning. No explanation. Just that. But the real shock came seconds later, when my aunt replied with something that changed everything. Tell me where you're watching from in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more real-life stories about family drama, betrayal, and emotional courage. It was a quiet Thursday morning. One of those gray Midwest days where the sky looks heavy but refuses to rain. I had just poured myself a cup of coffee, trying to ignore the ache that had been sitting behind my eyes since yesterday. I wasn't expecting anything dramatic, just another slow morning in my little apartment, halfway between work shifts and overdue bills. Then my phone buzzed. A soft chime. Nothing special. But it was from Family Chat Red Heart. The group text my parents, brother, cousins, and Aunt Linda were all in. We mostly used it for birthday wishes and shared recipes, so I didn't think much of it. Until I saw the first line. "Nataliah, we think it's best you step away for now." I froze mid-sip. The words didn't even process at first. I thought maybe it was a typo. Or a joke. But as I scrolled, there was no smiley face, no explanation. Just a paragraph, short, cold, perfectly punctuated, like it had been proofread. "You've been bringing too much tension lately. We all need a little space. Please respect this. We love you, but this is what's best for everyone right now." I read it 3 times before my hands started shaking. I didn't even realize I'd spilled coffee until it burned across my wrist. Space? Tension? Everyone. It sounded rehearsed, like something a therapist might script, but my parents hadn't spoken to me in 2 weeks. The last time we talked, I'd simply asked why they were rushing to sell Grandma's house so soon after her funeral. That was it. I wasn't rude. Just confused. But I guess in my family, confusion counts as rebellion. My throat tightened as I stared at the group chat. Nobody else had said a word yet. My brother, the golden child, stayed silent. My cousins probably saw it but didn't want to get involved. The 3 dots at the bottom blinked, then disappeared. Someone had started typing, and stopped. I locked my phone. Tried to breathe. Told myself not to overreact. Maybe it was a misunderstanding. Maybe Mom had worded it wrong. But deep down I knew better. In my family, silence always meant agreement. I don't remember sitting down, but I found myself on the couch, the coffee still dripping onto the rug. My chest felt hollow, like all the air had been pulled out. I scrolled back through the group chat history. Photos of Christmas, barbecue weekends, birthday emojis, little hearts. It all looked fake now. Like a scrapbook of lies glued together with guilt. My phone buzzed again. My heart jumped. This time it was Aunt Linda. Her message popped up beneath my parents like a spark in a dark room. "Well, isn't that convenient?" That was all she said. 7 words. No emojis. No explanation. Just enough to make everyone uncomfortable. I actually let out a small laugh, half shock, half disbelief. Aunt Linda had always been the one who didn't play along with the family's perfect image. She was blunt, sarcastic, the kind of woman who'd walk out of a room before pretending to agree. My mom used to say she was difficult, but I always thought she was just honest. The group chat exploded after that. My brother replied, "Linda, this isn't your place." Linda. Neither is cutting out your own daughter. Mom. Please stop making things worse. I watched it unfold like a car crash. My stomach twisted tighter with every message. Then just like that, the chat went silent again. Nobody else dared to pick sides. The quiet after that argument was unbearable. I sat staring at the screen, replaying every moment that led here. I'd helped take care of Grandma for months while everyone else was too busy. I cleaned her house, made her meals, held her hand when she forgot who I was. And when she passed, I thought the family would pull closer. Instead, it felt like they couldn't wait to erase her, and me along with her. I tried calling Mom. Straight to voicemail. Tried again. Nothing. Then I texted, "Can we please talk about this?" The message showed delivered, but not read. That tiny missing word broke something in me. I started pacing the small living room, my bare feet sticking to the cool hardwood. I could feel my pulse in my ears. The air felt heavier with every breath. I wanted to cry, but no tears came. Just that familiar pressure in my chest, the one that always showed up when I was told to calm down or stop overreacting. But this time I didn't want to calm down. This time I wanted to understand why. That night I couldn't sleep. The apartment felt too quiet. Every small sound, the fridge hum, the pipes creaking, felt like reminders of how alone I was. Around midnight I opened the chat again, just to make sure it was real. It was still there. The same message. The same silence. And at the bottom, Aunt Linda's 7 words glared back at me. Well, isn't that convenient? Something about those words kept echoing in my mind. Convenient. Convenient for who? I clicked on her name and opened our private chat. My thumbs hovered over the keyboard. I didn't even know what to say. Finally I typed, "Did I do something wrong?" She replied almost instantly, "No, honey. You did something right. That's why they're angry." That made no sense at first. But her next message hit harder. "Call me tomorrow. We need to talk. Privately." I stared at that message for a long time before setting my phone down. My heart raced with confusion and a small flicker of fear. What did she mean? What could I have possibly done right to deserve being cut out of my own family? The next morning I dragged myself to work at the cafe down the street. I'd barely slept. My coworkers noticed something was off, but I brushed it off. I couldn't explain that my parents had just kicked me out of the family chat like it was some group project gone wrong. Who would even believe that? During my lunch break I sat outside on the bench, scrolling through photos of Grandma's house. The porch swing, the faded curtains, the rose bushes she used to prune every morning. Still felt like hers. And in a strange way like mine too. That's when I remembered something. 2 days before she passed, Grandma had whispered something to me, barely audible over the oxygen machine. "Keep the house, Nat, don't let them sell it. It's our root." At the time I thought she was just reminiscing. But now, that message in the group chat, maybe it wasn't about tension. Maybe it was about that. When I got home, I noticed the letter slipped under my door. No return address. Inside was a photocopy, property documents, the title deed of Grandma's house, and a sticky note attached in Linda's handwriting. "You should see what they filed last week." My stomach dropped. My parents were listed as sole executors. No mention of me, even though Grandma had told everyone more than once that she wanted me to keep the house. I felt sick, betrayed, but also awake. That's when I realized this wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a plan. They didn't want me to step away because I was causing tension. They wanted me gone before I could ask questions. I sat there for hours, the papers spread across my kitchen table. My coffee went cold again. I could almost hear Grandma's voice in my head, calm, gentle but firm. Some people show love with actions, others with control. It all clicked. The fake concern, the rushed messages, the silence, it was all control. And for once I wasn't going to let them have it. I didn't reply to the group chat again that night. I didn't beg or defend myself. I just scrolled one last time, reread Linda's brave little message, and finally understood what she meant. Convenient. Because cutting me out made their plan easier. But they underestimated one thing. I was my grandmother's granddaughter. And I'd learned from her that silence can be stronger than shouting. That night, I whispered into the empty room, almost like a promise. If they want space, they'll get it. But this time, it'll cost them. And that's how it began. The day a single message broke my family apart and started everything that came next. When the group message ended that night, the silence in my apartment felt deafening. The soft glow from my phone screen was the only light in the room, and I just sat there frozen, reading the words again and again. "We think it's best you step away for now." It wasn't just a message. It was a verdict. And as much as I wanted to pretend it came out of nowhere, deep down I knew it didn't. The signs had been there for months, maybe even years. The next morning, I made myself a cup of coffee that went cold before I took the first sip. My hands trembled as I scrolled through old messages, family photos, cheerful emojis, birthday wishes that once felt genuine. Now each text looked like a piece of a puzzle I had ignored for too long. I whispered to myself, when did we start falling apart? That's when I decided to trace it back, to understand how love and loyalty in our family had turned into silence and separation. The first crack. The Christmas dinner that wasn't merry. Last Christmas was the first time I felt something shift. We were all at Mom and Dad's house, the same cozy living room where we'd laughed for decades. But that night the warmth was missing. My brother Aaron barely spoke to me. My mom avoided my eyes, and Dad seemed unusually quiet. When I asked if something was wrong, Mom smiled too quickly. "Of course not, honey. Let's just enjoy dinner." But the table conversation told another story. My career, something they used to celebrate, suddenly became a point of quiet judgment. When I mentioned moving to Seattle for a new opportunity, Dad sighed and said, "You're always chasing something, aren't you?" Aaron laughed under his breath. "Yeah, never satisfied." I laughed it off at the time, pretending it didn't sting. But later that night, while washing dishes, I caught Mom whispering to Aunt Lily in the hallway. "She's always been distant. Maybe it's just who she is." It felt like I'd overheard something I wasn't supposed to, a truth they'd been saying for years. The second crack, when Aunt Lily took my side. Aunt Lily had always been my person, the one who noticed when I was hurting, who called just to check in. A few months after Christmas, she came over for tea. We sat in my kitchen and I finally told her how I felt. "I don't know what I did wrong, Aunt Lily. It's like I'm the outsider now." She squeezed my hand. "Nataliah, you've always been more open-minded than the rest of them. That scares people who don't want to see change." Her words soothed me, but I didn't realize then how dangerous they were. Because later she called Mom to talk things through. And that's when the gossip began. I found out weeks later from my cousin Mia, who accidentally let it slip. "Mom said Aunt Lily's been defending you again. Grandpa thinks she's just stirring trouble." That was the beginning of the divide, not just between me and my parents but between Mom and her sister. And I hated that I'd been the reason. The third crack, the family group chat that changed tone. We had a family group chat called The Thompsons. It used to be full of memes, pictures of Aaron's kids, and random good morning messages from Dad. But slowly the tone changed. When I shared a photo of the new apartment I had moved into, nobody replied for 2 days. When they finally did, it was Mom saying, "Looks cozy." Then one evening Aaron posted a sarcastic meme about people who think they know better than everyone. It wasn't directed at anyone, but I knew. I tried to tell myself I was imagining things, that families go through weird phases. But the energy in every message grew colder, and my replies shorter, until I just stopped sending them. I thought giving them space would help. Instead, it made them think I didn't care. The fourth crack, Mom's birthday and the silent treatment. Mom's birthday was my breaking point. I called her early that morning to wish her, but she didn't pick up. Then I texted, "Happy birthday, Mom. I love you." Hours passed. No reply. That evening I saw pictures posted on Facebook, my parents, Aaron, his wife, and their kids, all having dinner at Mom's favorite restaurant. The caption said, "Family night. Feeling blessed." I stared at the photo for a long time. My heart physically hurt. It wasn't about the dinner. It was about not being included, not even being told. I commented, "Looks wonderful. Hope you had a great time." No one replied. That night Aunt Lily called. "Nataliah, I didn't even know about the dinner until I saw the photos. Something's not right." That's when she said the words that made my stomach twist. "Your mom and Aaron think you've become difficult to deal with. They say you're too sensitive lately." Too sensitive. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Because if they only knew how hard I tried not to feel hurt, they'd understand sensitivity was the only thing holding me together. The fifth crack, the phone call I shouldn't have heard. 2 weeks before the group message, something happened that I still can't forget. I had called my dad to ask about some old boxes from my childhood that I left in their attic. He answered, but before I could say much, I heard Mom in the background. "Don't tell her about next weekend. She'll want to come." I froze. Dad stuttered. She's on the phone, Linda." There was a pause and then a quiet sigh. "Oh, well, just family time. We don't want drama." They thought I was the drama. I hung up mid-sentence, tears already burning my eyes. That was the moment I realized I wasn't just drifting away from them. They were actively pushing me out. The aftermath, when the cracks became walls. By the time the group message came, the cracks had already turned into canyons. It wasn't one fight, one word, or one misunderstanding. It was 1,000 small moments where love was replaced with quiet judgment. And I wasn't innocent either. I had built my own walls, avoiding phone calls, replying late, pretending I didn't care. Maybe part of me thought if I acted strong enough it wouldn't hurt as much. But when the message came, "We think it's best you step away for now," I realized those walls didn't protect me. They just kept me alone. That night I sat on my couch, scrolling through old photos. Family vacations, Sunday dinners, Dad teaching me how to ride a bike. Every smile felt like a ghost. And yet, one thing kept me from deleting the chat entirely. Aunt Lily's reply to that message. She had written, "Step away? From her own family? Have you all forgotten who taught us love in the first place?" Her words broke me and healed me all at once. Because in that single sentence she reminded me I wasn't crazy. I wasn't the villain. I was just heartbroken. That night, as I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, I realized I couldn't fix what had already shattered. But I could at least understand it. Tracing the cracks wasn't about blaming anyone. It was about facing the truth. That sometimes the people who raised you also teach you how to let go. And for the first time in a long while I whispered to myself, maybe stepping away isn't the end. Maybe it's the start of healing. The phone buzzed beside me. A message from Aunt Lily. "You're not alone, sweetheart. Let them figure themselves out. You just keep being you." And in that moment I realized she was right. I didn't need to chase love that ran away from me. Because sometimes tracing back the cracks isn't about fixing what's broken. It's about finally seeing where you stopped belonging. I didn't sleep that night. Aunt Lily's message kept replaying in my mind, her quiet reassurance that I wasn't alone. But something inside me felt unsettled. It wasn't just comfort I wanted anymore. It was clarity. The cracks had been traced, the wounds reopened, but I still didn't understand the why. Why had my parents, the two people who once called me their pride, decided I was someone they needed distance from? I needed answers. And there was only one person who might have them. Aunt Linda. Yes, that Aunt Linda. The one my family always called the practical one. The one who never picked sides, never got emotional, never interfered. She was my mom's older sister, and in many ways her opposite. Where my mom was gentle and cautious, Aunt Linda was sharp and brutally honest. The kind of woman who could look you in the eye and tell you your life was falling apart, then hand you a plate of cookies right after. But for months she'd been silent too. No calls, no texts, nothing. Until that morning. Call I didn't expect. It was 8:17 a.m. when my phone rang. The name flashing on the screen made my stomach twist. Aunt Linda. I hesitated before answering, half expecting it to be an accidental dial. "Hello," I said softly. Her voice came through steady and deliberate. "Nataliah, honey. We need to talk." The tone in her voice wasn't warm, but it wasn't cold either. It was serious, like she'd been holding something back for too long. I tried to keep my voice calm. "About what?" There was a pause and then she said, "About your mother. About everything that's been happening. The visit." By noon I was standing outside her house. An old white cottage with ivy crawling up the sides and a porch swing that creaked with the breeze. It smelled like lilacs and fresh coffee, just like I remembered from childhood visits. She opened the door before I could knock. Her silver hair was tied up neatly, her expression unreadable. "Come in, sweetheart," she said. I stepped inside, feeling like a child again. The air was thick with something, maybe tension, maybe regret. She led me to the living room, where 2 mugs of coffee were already waiting on the table. She sat across from me, folded her hands, and took a slow breath. "I've been meaning to reach out," she began. "But your mother, she asked me not to." My heart skipped. "She asked you not to?" "Yes." She thought hearing from me might make things worse. I stared at her. Worse than being completely shut out? Her eyes softened. "That's what I told her. But Linda's been fragile lately. More than you think." The story behind the silence. Aunt Linda leaned back, looking tired, as if what she was about to say had been weighing on her for months. "You have to understand," she said quietly. "Your mom has always lived for peace. Even when peace meant pretending everything was fine. She can't handle conflict, it eats at her." I frowned. So ignoring me was her way of keeping peace? In her mind, yes. But it's not just about you, sweetheart. She took a sip of her coffee and looked at me over the rim. "Something happened 2 years ago. A conversation between your dad, Aaron, and your mom. It changed how she saw you." My breath caught. What conversation? Aunt Linda hesitated. Your brother told your parents you said things about them, personal things, during that podcast interview you did. About how they were controlling, about how you always felt unseen. I blinked, stunned. That was a general discussion about family expectations. I never even mentioned them by name. I know, she said gently. But someone told them otherwise. And once your dad heard that, he took it personally. I buried my face in my hands. So all of this, all the coldness, the distance, was over that? Aunt Linda nodded slowly. Pride can ruin more than anger ever will. The hidden messages. As she spoke, fragments of old conversations started making sense. Mom's quiet sighs whenever I mentioned my podcast. Dad's sudden withdrawal from our weekly calls. Aaron's smug little smirks during family dinners. It all fit now. They never even asked me, I whispered. Not once. Your mom wanted to, Aunt Linda said softly. But your dad told her to let it go. He said if you wanted to talk, you'd reach out. I laughed bitterly. How could I reach out when they were shutting me out? Aunt Linda gave a sad smile. That's what I told her. But sweetheart, your dad has always been proud. He believes silence teaches lessons. And your mom follows his lead more than she admits. I felt anger rise in my chest, thick and hot. So instead of calling me, they just, sent a group message to kick me out of the family? Her lips pressed together. I'm not defending them. What they did was wrong. But you need to know it didn't come from hate. It came from fear. Fear of losing face. Fear of being misunderstood. A hidden confession. The silence between us stretched. Then Aunt Linda said something that changed everything. Your mom wanted to call you that night. After they sent the message. My head shot up. What? She called me crying, Aunt Linda said softly. She said she didn't mean for it to sound so final. Your dad wrote the message and she just went along. The image hit me like a punch. My mother crying in her kitchen while my father typed out words that would break me. Why didn't she call anyway? I asked, my voice trembling. Aunt Linda's eyes glistened. Because she thought you hated her. I shook my head slowly. I never hated her. I was hurt, but never that. I know, Aunt Linda said, reaching across the table to take my hand. But sometimes hurt looks like hate from a distance. The truth about Aaron. We sat quietly for a while, both lost in thought. Then I asked the question I'd been avoiding. Did Aaron mean to turn them against me? Aunt Linda looked away, her jaw tightening. Aaron's always wanted to be your father's favorite. He thought if he stood with your parents, he'd finally get that approval. So he threw me under the bus to get it? I'm afraid so. Her words stung, but they didn't surprise me. Aaron had always been competitive, even as kids. When I got into a good college, he mocked me for being too academic. When I bought my first house, he joked about me showing off. But this was different. This isn't sibling rivalry, I said quietly. It's betrayal. Aunt Linda sighed. He'll learn eventually. But it won't be from me. It has to come from his own guilt. The letter. Before I left, Aunt Linda stood and walked to a drawer by the window. She pulled out a small folded letter and handed it to me. Your mom wrote this after that night, she said. She never mailed it. My hands trembled as I opened it. The handwriting was unmistakably hers, neat, round, a little shaky at the edges. My sweet Nataliah. I don't know how to fix what's broken. I don't even know when it started. Your father says we should wait for you to come around, but every night I wonder if I pushed you away first. You've always been strong, maybe stronger than I wanted you to be. Maybe that scared me. If you ever read this, please know I never stopped loving you. Love, Mom. I folded the letter carefully, pressing it to my chest. Tears blurred the ink until the words turned to shadows. Aunt Linda said quietly, she didn't mean for it to get this far, honey. None of them did. A different kind of truth. As I drove home that evening, the sun dipped low behind the trees, painting the sky in soft gold. I rolled down the window and let the wind hit my face. It didn't feel like closure yet, but it felt like the beginning of understanding. Aunt Linda's truth hadn't fixed everything. It hadn't made the hurt disappear. But it had peeled away the layers of silence that had smothered me for so long. For the first time, I could see my parents not as villains, but as flawed people trapped in their own fears and pride. And maybe, just maybe, that realization was the first step toward healing. As I parked outside my apartment, my phone buzzed with a new message. It was from Aunt Linda. She asked about you tonight. Maybe there's hope yet. I stared at the message, smiling through the ache in my chest. Maybe there was. The next Sunday, Aunt Linda called again. Her tone was lighter this time, almost careful. Your mom wants to have everyone over, she said. Just dinner. Nothing heavy. She didn't say much else, but I think she's trying, Nataliah. I froze where I stood, my phone pressed against my ear. Dinner? After months of silence after that message? Are you saying they want me there? I asked, not quite believing it. Yes, Aunt Linda said softly. Both your parents agreed. Your dad didn't say much, but he didn't stop your mom either. That's something. I wanted to believe her. I really did. But my stomach churned with nerves, and my heart pounded in that old familiar rhythm. The one that came from wanting acceptance and fearing rejection all at once. Still I said yes. Because sometimes, even when the past feels too heavy to lift, you go anyway. The drive back home. The drive to my parents' house felt longer than usual, though it was only an hour away. The autumn air had turned crisp, leaves curling into shades of amber and rust. The closer I got to their neighborhood, the more I felt my chest tighten. Every turn of the road felt like a step back in time. Their house looked the same, white siding, blue shutters, perfectly trimmed hedges. But it didn't feel the same. It felt distant, like a childhood photo I couldn't quite recognize anymore. I parked across the street and sat there for a moment, gripping the steering wheel. My reflection in the rearview mirror looked calm, but my heart was anything but. Then I saw Aunt Linda's car parked in the driveway. That helped a little. At least I wasn't walking into this alone. The first step inside. The front door opened before I could knock. My mom stood there wearing a pale yellow sweater I hadn't seen before. Her eyes met mine, uncertain, glassy. Hi, sweetheart, she said quietly. Hi, Mom. It was strange, those two words had once been so easy. Now they felt heavy, like they carried every memory between us. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then she stepped forward and wrapped her arms around me. It was a hesitant hug, but real. Her familiar scent, lavender and laundry soap, hit me like a wave. Behind her, I saw my dad standing in the hallway, his arms crossed. His expression was neutral. Not warm, not cold, just unreadable. And then Aaron stepped out from the kitchen, wearing that same smug half-smile I remembered. Didn't think you'd actually come, he said. I forced a small smile. Yeah, well, I guess surprises run in the family. Aunt Linda shot him a look sharp enough to cut glass. Aaron, not today. He rolled his eyes and disappeared back into the kitchen, the table that held too much. Dinner was set like nothing had ever gone wrong. The tablecloth was the same floral one my mom always used for Sunday dinners. Candles flickered. The smell of roasted chicken and mashed potatoes filled the air. But under all that warmth there was tension, thick, quiet, and fragile. We sat down, and for the first 10 minutes conversation felt like walking on thin glass. My mom asked about my job. My dad commented on traffic. Aunt Linda kept refilling everyone's glasses just to keep her hands busy. It was normal, too normal. Until my mom finally put her fork down. Nataliah, she said softly. I want to say something before dinner ends. All eyes turned to her. My stomach knotted. She looked at me, her expression trembling somewhere between guilt and fear. I've been meaning to tell you. I'm sorry. The words hung there. Simple but heavy. She continued, her voice shaking. I should have called. I shouldn't have let things get so cold between us. That message. I never wanted it to sound like that. A lump formed in my throat. Then why didn't you stop it? She looked down. Because I didn't know how. Your father said we needed space. And I agreed because I thought silence would make things easier. But it only made me lose you. I swallowed hard, blinking back tears. I never stopped wanting to come home, I said. I just didn't know if you'd want me. She reached for my hand across the table. Of course we do. You're our daughter. But then my father's voice cut through the quiet. The confrontation. Hold on, he said, his tone steady but hard. We're not pretending nothing happened here. The room went still. John, Aunt Linda warned, but he ignored her. He looked straight at me. You embarrassed this family, Nataliah. You went on your little show and talked about how you were controlled and unseen. What did you expect us to think? My chest tightened. I never said your names. I was talking about how I felt. He leaned forward. And how you felt painted us as villains to whoever listened. That's not fair, I said, my voice rising despite myself. You're upset about how people might have interpreted it. Not what I actually said. Intent doesn't erase impact, he snapped. Your mother cried for days. Do you understand that? My mom's eyes filled with tears again. John, she whispered. But I couldn't stay quiet anymore. And I cried for months, I said, my voice shaking. Because you didn't even ask me what I meant. You just assumed the worst and threw me out like I was nothing. The air felt heavy charged. Aunt Linda finally spoke, her voice calm but firm. You all need to listen to each other. Not to win but to understand. This family is breaking apart because you're too busy defending your pain instead of sharing it. For a moment no one said anything. Then Aaron muttered under his breath. Maybe it's better this way. My head snapped toward him. Excuse me. He looked up, unbothered. You've always wanted to be separate. Not doing your own thing. Maybe you got what you wanted. Aunt Linda turned on him. That's enough, Aaron. But I was done holding back. You're the one who told them lies, I said. You told them I trashed them publicly. He stiffened. I just repeated what I heard. From who? Yourself. I shot back. The tension broke like glass. The breaking point. Aaron pushed his chair back. You always play the victim. And you always hide behind being the good son, I said sharply. But you're not. You manipulated them because you wanted to look loyal. Congratulations, you got it. You got to be the favorite. Enough, my dad thundered, slamming his hand on the table. The sound made everyone jump. He stood up, face red, breathing hard. I will not have this under my roof. I stood too, trembling but steady. Then maybe this isn't a home anymore. The silence that followed was deafening. Aunt Linda looked heartbroken. My mom looked frozen, her eyes darting between me and Dad. Finally she whispered, John, please stop. He turned away, running a hand over his face. I just don't understand her anymore, he muttered. For a moment I almost sat back down. Almost apologized, even though I hadn't done anything wrong. But then I remembered all those nights I spent crying, wondering why my own parents couldn't hear me. And I stayed standing. A small shift. Then, something unexpected happened. My mom stood up too. She walked around the table, gently placing a hand on my shoulder. I understand her, she said softly. Because she's me. Just braver. Her words hit the room like a quiet earthquake. My dad looked up, startled. She turned to him. John, she's not trying to destroy us. She's trying to be heard. And maybe that's something we all forgot how to do. Aunt Linda's eyes glistened. That's the truth right there. No one spoke for a long time. Finally my dad sat back down, rubbing his temples. I don't know how to fix this, he said quietly. But I want to try. It wasn't an apology, but it was the closest thing to one I'd ever heard from him. I took a slow breath and nodded. That's all I ever wanted. The ending of the night. Dinner resumed quietly after that. The tension didn't vanish, but it softened. Aaron stayed quiet, his eyes fixed on his plate. My mom asked if I wanted to take leftovers home. My dad poured me a glass of water without being asked. Small gestures, but they mattered. When it was time to leave, Aunt Linda hugged me tight at the door. You did good, she whispered. Sometimes the truth has to shake the walls before it can settle. I smiled weakly. Feels like they might have cracked a little. She chuckled softly. That's how the light gets in, sweetheart. As I walked back to my car, the cool night air hit my face. I looked back at the house one last time. Through the window I could see my mom clearing the table while my dad helped her fold the tablecloth. They weren't perfect. They never had been. But maybe tonight wasn't about perfection. Maybe it was about beginnings, messy, fragile, and real. And for the first time in a long while, that felt like enough. When Aunt Linda dropped me off that night, the silence in her car said everything we didn't. I remember watching the streetlights flicker across the windshield, wondering if this was what peace was supposed to feel like, or if it was just the quiet before another storm. She gave my hand a soft squeeze before I got out. You did the right thing, Nataliah, she said gently. Sometimes stepping away isn't running. It's choosing yourself. But the truth was I didn't feel strong or wise. I felt hollow. My phone, the same one that carried that cruel message, "We think it's best you step away for now," was now on silent, lying face down on my nightstand. I couldn't bear to see their names again. 1. Learning how to breathe again. The first morning after I woke up early. No alarm, no noise, just an unfamiliar stillness. I made coffee, but it tasted bitter no matter how much sugar I added. The silence of my small apartment felt too heavy, almost echoing. I spent hours sitting by the window, staring at the parking lot below. My phone buzzed twice, once from a work reminder, once from an unknown number I didn't dare open. My hands trembled each time. For weeks I tried filling my days with distractions. Cleaning, baking, long walks. Anything that would drown out the echo of my family's rejection. Yet, the more I tried, the louder their absence became. Sometimes I'd scroll through old photos. Holidays, birthdays, that one family barbecue where everyone laughed until their stomachs hurt. I'd look at my parents' faces and wonder how people could smile that warmly one day, then type words that could shatter you the next. One afternoon, I joined a local pottery class. I didn't know why, maybe because shaping clay with my hands felt grounding. The instructor, an older woman named Marla, reminded me a bit of Aunt Linda. Calm voice, kind eyes. She didn't ask questions, just smiled when I struggled to center the clay. "You'll get it," she said. "Takes time to find balance. The trick is to stop forcing it." I didn't realize how much that line would mean to me until later. 2. When silence started to heal. Weeks passed, then months. The ache in my chest dulled, replaced by a quiet sense of strength I hadn't known I had. One rainy evening, I got a message from Aunt Linda. "Just thinking of you. Hope you're doing okay." I stared at it for a long time before typing back. "Trying. Some days are better. Some aren't." She replied with a heart emoji and nothing else. It was simple, but it was enough. That night I finally cried, not the angry kind but the kind that cleans you out. I realized I'd been holding everything in, afraid that if I broke down I'd never stop. Slowly I started reclaiming small pieces of myself. I joined a book club, volunteered at a food pantry, even started jogging, something I hadn't done since high school. Each small step reminded me that life didn't stop just because love did. And yet, I couldn't pretend I didn't miss them. Every birthday or family holiday that passed brought back that ache. Not sharp but deep, like a healed scar that still stings when the weather changes. One night, while scrolling through social media, I saw a picture my cousin posted. My parents, smiling at a family dinner. No mention of me. No tag. Nothing. My throat tightened. For a moment I hovered over the like button. Not because I approved, but because I wanted to remind them I existed. Then I stopped. I didn't owe them visibility. That was the night I promised myself something. If they ever wanted to talk again, it would have to be because they truly wanted to understand, not just to make peace on their terms. 3. The unexpected call. 3 months later my phone rang. It was Mom. I froze. Her name on the screen felt surreal, familiar yet foreign. My heart pounded. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something in me said, "Face it, Nataliah. You can't hide forever." I answered. "Hello." Her voice was shaky, unsure. "Hi, it's me." I didn't say anything. After a pause she continued. "I heard you've been spending time with your Aunt Linda." There it was. The tone, not angry but cautious, as if testing whether the bridge between us could still hold weight. "Yes," I said quietly. "She's been kind." She sighed, long and weary. "I know you're hurt. I just want you to know we never meant to push you away like that." I clenched my jaw. "You literally told me to step away, Mom." She went silent. I could almost hear her swallow hard on the other end. "It was your father's idea," she finally said. "He thought some space would help." "Help who?" I asked. "You or me?" When she didn't answer I knew. The call lasted only a few minutes, but after it ended I felt lighter. Not healed but lighter. Because for the first time I wasn't afraid to stand in my truth, to say the hard thing and not crumble afterward. Aunt Linda called that night. "So," she asked softly, "how did it go?" I smiled faintly. It wasn't closure, but it was something. 4. Rediscovering myself. I started journaling again. Every night I'd write one thing I learned that day. Something small, sometimes silly. Today I learned that clay doesn't crack if you let it rest. Today I realized healing isn't about forgetting. It's about remembering without pain. Over time, those entries started to sound less like someone surviving and more like someone living. I went on weekend trips with new friends from pottery class. We laughed, got lost on hiking trails, shared stories about family and love and heartbreak. I began to see that everyone carried invisible bruises, and that mine weren't the only ones that hurt quietly. One afternoon, Marla looked at the vase I was finishing and said, "You found your rhythm, haven't you?" I nodded. Took a while. She smiled. It always does. That evening, while watching the sunset from my balcony, I realized I hadn't checked my phone all day. Not out of avoidance but peace. That silence that once haunted me now felt like freedom. 5. What stepping away really meant. Months later, I was at a small art fair displaying my pottery pieces. Nothing fancy, just handmade vases, bowls, a few clay hearts with quotes etched in them. As I was arranging them, I heard a voice behind me. "These are beautiful." I turned. It was my mother. For a moment, the world froze. She looked older, smaller somehow. Her eyes glistened, and she gave me a hesitant smile. "Hi, Mom," I said, my voice steadier than I expected. She looked around at my work, touching one of the clay hearts gently. "You made these?" "Yes. They're peaceful." We stood there in silence for a long time. Finally, she whispered, "I'm sorry, Nat." Something inside me softened. I didn't know if forgiveness was ready, but understanding was. I nodded. "I'm okay now, Mom." Tears welled in her eyes. "I'm glad." That day didn't erase the hurt, but it did something more important. It reminded me that walking away hadn't been about punishment. It was about protection. Stepping away didn't mean giving up on my family. It meant giving myself the space to heal without their noise. Now, when I think about that message, "We think it's best you step away for now," I see it differently. It wasn't the end. It was the start of me choosing myself for the first time in my life. And maybe that's what family really means. Not the ones who never hurt you, but the ones who, when the silence clears, come back ready to listen. Because sometimes stepping away isn't losing them. It's finding yourself.